Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, we are currently live on twitch.tv. I went to the gym right after the series because it was a quick one and I predicted 3-0, so I just timed my pre-workout perfectly after game 2, did the whole speech, and then boom, we moved on. C9 got 3-0 today. Let's take a look at what we learned. I think honestly the games are largely uninteresting because C9, they definitely looked quite lifeless in their game against Genji. I think if you categorize Genji in the context of the top 4 teams now that are left in the tournament, I think Genji is the team that, of course, I like. Most of my viewers are European, right? So I think that they are basically a much better version of what BDS was domestically. Basically, I think that Genji is a team that really just limits all of the risk when they see a clear path to victory. I think that they play to the draft conditions, and I think that they limit risk at the moment they are in an advantageous position. And that can be a very big strength. Basically, they don't look to pressure you, they don't look to force on you, but they choose their moments very well. I think we saw that against G2 as well in their series, where they waited for the right item spikes, they curved out and distributed resources very well. And I think in terms of their approach to the early game, I think in a lot of cases, what they try to do is just secure the game, so pace, and of course, their Chovy, you know, just keeps a 10 CS per minute to the point where they're going to dominate the game because mechanically this team is very strong. They allow Doran to, in most cases, just pick a tank that is going to, you know, do well as the game scales on. But Doran has sides to himself. You know, he played the Fiora into the Darius as an example, so he definitely has a champion pool. I think that if you want to point at some points of inconsistencies, I think that Doran definitely in a lot of cases is hit or miss. When he hits hard, combos are landing, barrels are flying, but when he misses, he gets solo killed, and sometimes it's a little bit of a liability. But I think in the current context of the current meta, that being a top laner that is a liability is not that big of a deal, and a lot of the matchups are definitely you know, very easy to play out. If you're playing Sion against Gragas or K'Sante into X, in a lot of cases, they kind of play out themselves. I think that the other teams, I think that specifically JDG and T1, they play a lot more risk prone in the sense that they try to squeeze advantages with the opportunities that are given to them. They really like to accelerate games and put themselves in situations where they look to actively punish mistakes. And when you're playing a more decisive version of League of Legends, where you are enforcing more and more decisions, there is more room for mistakes, right? It's like you are then required to be more coordinated, more mechanically sharp in much more moments in the game if you try to squeeze advantages out of anything that is presenting itself, right? And naturally, if you're going to be forced to take more decisions, there is room for more error. But I think the key thing here is that T1 and JDG, it's like if Genji is ever facing up against these two teams, I think that they'll be playing on the back foot, and they need to invite and wait for the other team to overreach. And I think sometimes that can be dangerous if the enemy is very sharp, and I think that we saw that in the T1 Genji series. There was of course one game there, especially game 4, where Genji managed to get a massive lead, and I think T1 showed a lot of their prowess in terms of playing a defensive game, but then overreaching on mid. You remember the one where Paze had this beautiful stopwatch, but the majority of the time T1 was the one that took over the initiative of the game, and I think that JDG versus Genji would play out in a very similar fashion. Initiative is very important. Taking initiative and being able to take those risks that might, when I say risk, it's like there might be a 60-40 chance, right? And those are pretty damn good odds, right? Maybe some decisions require better mechanical execution, maybe you know, you're playing with information that might be not complete, and you're taking decisions to pressure, right? Those things lead to very snowballing games, and I think that T1 vs Genji showcased how important that can be. I think if Genji's flow of their game is disrupted, I think that's where they struggle. While I feel like JDG and NT1 and also Bilibili are a lot more loose in how they interpret the state of the game. I think that when Genji get a hold of the game, they are very good at never letting go. But often, if the draft allows for it, when things are contested and they play against very, very skilled players, this is where, you know, Genji is going to get challenged the most in the majority of the tournament. Genji vs C9, looking at the first game, I don't think that we learned too much, but I was surprised to see this side of Genji because they first pick Nautilus and then goes Aphelios Lulu. We talked about this abundantly in the previous breakdown. Aphelios Lulu, we basically you know, secure ourselves against most matchups. The answer in most cases is just Jinx, Blitzcrank, and that's it, right? Blitzcrank is actually a champion that scales pretty well. I don't want it to, you know, I don't want Blitzcrank to be categorized as a champion that doesn't scale well, because as the game proceeds, not even your tankiest member can block a hook. Sure, there's champions that have a ability in their kit that can completely nullify Blitzcrank hook, like Keisante W or Ornn W. These are abilities that are very good against Blitzcrank hook. But this is a champion, you know, that can easily follow up on, for example, Nautilus's abilities, right? So we have Sion on 3. People were asking, you know, in chat, you know, can they do the Sion strat here? The issue here is Jinx can actually contest the wave level 1, and if you can't push the enemy off, sure, Aphelios Lulu can maybe go third bush and look to all in and pressure them off. Maybe there's some potential there, but you need to be able to like actively win level 1, both in the jungle and also in you know, in the lane too. And I think that Jinx, you know, with the rockets, usually people associate that with not doing the level 1 plan. Even though maybe Aphelios Lulu can go into the third bush and just fucking all in Blitzcrank Jinx because they're stronger level 1. Maybe there's some room to do there. But this was a safer approach from, like, I think looking for that with Sion is it needs to be clear cut that you win, you know. Gwen gets banned to secure the Sion, and then the Nidalee as well. Nidalee because we saw a lot of Nidalee Nautilus and Peanut can play it. And then Silas and then Lee Sin, probably to set up the Kha'Zix. And then Syndra gets picked on 4 as an answer into the Nautilus. I think here probably there's better answers than Syndra into Nautilus. He did choose to go for a futures market. He wanted to go for the scaling build. So you're going to be able to farm with Syndra, but Nautilus will have moments in the game where you'll feel pressured by the enemy jungle, and he will also have like windows to roam. And sometimes that's not enough to break the game, especially in the context of here when you have already a tank top, the enemy diving top maybe doesn't matter at all, especially Sion can clear waves with passive, tough to dive. So there is room to interpret this however you want, right? We saw Knight play it. If you're really good on Syndra, you can farm for free, get your stacks for free into Nautilus, and you can have a good time. Here I thought also there's the option of maybe, just maybe, they're going to go Nautilus jungle. I thought this is something that they considered, but I think that in this spot, right, because enemy picks Syndra on 4, the AD champions that you might want to play mid against Syndra, like Jace or Tristana, they are not that great, right? So maybe this is something they're saving for the future, if teams want to play Nautilus jungle. Ornn, Kha'Zix, leads in out, and then enemy goes Poppy on 4, 5. I think, you know, already here in these type of situations, I think you don't need to over-index on what the actual jungle matchup is. Because I think here Poppy doesn't have that crazy amount of value. Something that I want to mention is just that I think there's an argument to maybe look for a Trundle here on 5. If you want to improve your potential position, you know. I think here in terms of what you pick on 5 here for enemy team, I think it's quite hard when you have a tank, and Jinx Blitzcrank. In my mind, it's quite hard to be like super accurate with what you pick here. But I thought maybe here there's room for Trundle. You know, especially when you know already the game is going to be front to back, and Trundle already gains value against Ornn, Blitzcrank, Nautilus. These are champions that are going to struggle against a Pillar and also the Trundle ultimate. But I know a lot of players don't feel comfortable playing Kha'Zix into of course, Trundle. But I think that it's important that you don't overthink the isolated jungle matchup, because there's so many things at play that can give you an opportunity to succeed. But when I saw the Poppy here, I thought, oh, maybe they're actually doing the science strat, because Poppy is very strong at diving on level 3. Okay? Thank you very much for the subscription, Zaras Polom, LOL. We continue into the game. This game, I think that C9 actually had very good conditions. They had some good trades on bottom side. They managed to push Jinx out of lane. She didn't get a good base. You see here Blitzcrank and Jinx, they both based on refillable. Let me just move my camera so you see the minimap. They both based on refillable. Things were looking really good. I think Nautilus here wasting his turn to dive a Scion is perfectly fine. Especially in this case here, when they managed to trade 1-for-1 even, which is in my mind quite crazy that they managed to get away with this. Chovy didn't want to flash. I think that this is fantastic for many reasons. It's like Nautilus burned his timer. Syndra gets to base for free, gets to keep TP as well. She gets to get a full lost chapter because she has their Sapphire Crystal start with Futures Market. So already the game is looking wonderful. The game is looking really, really good. The only concern really is Poppy's conditions. I just want to double check why Poppy is so poor here. I guess she gets double crabbed, and then Poppy bases and goes topside. That's why. Okay. So yeah, still, you know, things are looking good. Syndra has a lost chapter base, has TP advantage. Chovy needed TP mid. The hover in the bot of Nautilus, he's just going to drop a ward. There's no play, and things are looking quite fine. Quite fine. But everything kind of goes to shit the moment Fudge decides to kind of run it. Which was kind of crazy. We had a play here on bottom side, where maybe Berserker could potentially chase the Kha'Zix and burn his flash. The W was used already of Sven. Maybe if he saves his W and gets hooked, then he polymorphs maybe Kha'Zix, maybe he can live too. They, of course, C9 here are in a very good spot because they have base advantage and the wave was bouncing. And once again, Jinx had Cull. So this was very winning for C9. They had good chances here. Like, this looked like a fantastic start for C9, all things considered. This is where things began to go to shit. So I'm not sure what Fudge was thinking here. He was proxying the wave, and Kha'Zix and Nautilus were collapsing on him. And then he tried to find a Scion ulti out, and Dorn just flashed for him. And then Fudge, of course, misflashes, and he's on the turret with Balmy, so he gets the aggro. This was kind of strange, you know? Treat said on stream, like, if any other role did this but top, then everyone would be like, what the fuck is happening? But this is some gaming, that's for sure. Berserker is on the wave, freezing still with the pickaxe that we talked about before. They looked for a play here, and Sven and Blabber lost plenty of HP, but so did Blitz. So they're looking for base here. I think that Berserker here could have kept the freeze, but I think that they are pushing for the purpose of contesting the Herald. Now, as both teams open up on the map and Jinx stayed with fuck tempo on bot to push another wave, it's important that Fudge doesn't die in this transition. But instead, Fudge chooses to face check, and the tempo here of C9, even though that Aphelios and Lulu were first on the map, and MNS still kept TP, if Fudge doesn't die here, it's actually a very good situation for Cloud9. Imagine a world now, Aphelios, Lulu, and Poppy open through mid. Fudge pushed that wave and he groups up, or he's just ready to ult into river. Then Jinx's tempo here being so fucked and Syndra having TP would lead into them securing Herald. Everything would have been good. Him dying this window was the only way for Genji to kind of break the play. But now Jinx gets to push this one wave, and they created a scenario where they traded Sion's life for an Ornult. So this is very good, right? Very good. And keep in mind, the Genji's champions are very strong in these Rift Herald fights, so the best thing that you can create for yourself is some kind of a tempo advantage in order to create a circumstance where you basically outnumber. You need to leverage your strong lanes to outnumber or make the enemy really bleed for them to take Herald. But now they broke up the play, and also in 4v4 they're going to be stronger because Nautilus Q, Blitzcrank Q, there's no one that can really tank these abilities besides maybe Sion. But even that is tough, right? So we continue. Blabber looked to find Peanut, but Genji is already in River. There's no flash here on Blabber. He does a soft ult, which is of course only the knock-up. The Jinx ult lands, which is an easy one to fire, but a big part of Jinx's strength here is a business like this. Eminence TPs into the top tower to catch the wave, and he's not really connecting with his team for this. But this looked like C9 being very disjointed, right? It's like maybe if they wanted to really contest or fight this, Eminence needed to TP mid and sack that top wave. But now instead Syndra TP top and they pushed it forward. Poppy got killed because she has no flash. Here also I didn't understand what the fuck Sven is doing. Like, I don't know what this is. And this is why when watching this live, it did really look like Cena was quite lifeless, so maybe they didn't feel confident in this matchup. There was a lot of strange decisions and unforced errors that made these games very easy and simple for Genji to play out. And this is where Genji is in their element, right? It's like they have a very clear-cut point to push towards and then to find their victory. They already have a significant gold advantage, and they just need to play around the Drake timers and slowly, you know, win out the game. They're in no rush. I think the way you could describe Genji, how they play, is like how chess grandmasters play. It's like they have a pawn advantage, and they're going to leverage that pawn advantage into a winning position. You don't need to create chaos and craziness to create these crazy lines that have like infinite potential, these engine lines, in order to win harder. But they just kind of walk all the way to the finish line with this full centi-pawn advantage, if anyone's playing chess out there. So the rest of the game, I think Eminence was in good conditions, but the issue is Genji managed to recover the Jinx from the early tough lane phase, and we just kind of can fast forward a little bit to see the moments where Genji is just doing a very good job of securing their lanes, hovering for Chovy, sending Doran to the other side of the map, putting vision for Chovy so he can push all the way. They're just securing each other, not looking for anything too intense. They're securing each other, threatening a dive here, Kazakhstan and Fog of War. Just, very standard and relaxed League of Legends gameplay. I think this was, them using a tempo swing here because they secured the side and Sion was on bot to just push down mid with Herald. And at this point, I just want to highlight the items. You have two core finishes on Kha'Zix, you have the Abyssal, they're pushing down with Herald, they're grouped up, and the synergy of their abilities here it does look quite nice. So you have the Ornn ult, Berserker still has Gale Force here, but he gets airborne by the Nautilus ultimate into the ult of our homie Ornn, and then he just gets killed. So just like a very, very good masterclass if you really want to dig deep into it. Is just paying attention to Genji, how they play on two lanes. Chovy on the neutral wave secures River first. When they've secured River, they progress into topside. They maintain support and jungle and Fog of War on River. They secure mid. The enemy team can only Gale Force on Jinx, but that comes with a lot of risk because you have secured the river. And then when the river is secured, you take the neutrals on top with Nautilus showing, and then you crash, and then you take over Tribush too. So there's always this sequence, right? It's like Chovy could be on the mid wave, on the top wave, but he recognizes here Genji are the ones that need to take over river first. So he just hovers, ignores that top wave, he saw Syndra and realizes, I can be first here on river, while C9, of course, are making, a very bad mistake here, because the other way around is that Syndra pushes this wave because she has enough vision to do so, and during that time, just because Nautilus is not showing, they just take it easy, let the enemy take river, and then when this wave is pushed, Nautilus is going to catch, and then Syndra can connect, and they retake the river. But here they're just over posturing, and Blabber is, you know, really utilizing his water walking to the max here. I don't know what he's looking for. And the TP of Ornn behind lands, and Blabber just dies. So this is the type of gameplay Genji is very good at. Game number 2, I think it's plain and simple. C9 4-5 is terrible, very bad. If I try to think of how they could possibly improve this, I think, you know, ideally you figure out a way. Like there's two approaches to this. Like either you go for the compositional strength, where you try to maybe play Syndra Trundle as an example, right? Where you just have Syndra. Syndra's very good into Wukong, Rakan, Xayah, and then you deny the Scion with, of course, Trundle. Like that could be an example, right, of how you create a draft scenario where you scale better. You could potentially pick Gwen and an AD jungle and put K'Sante mid. I think that's a little bit harder because, you know, I think, you know, Gwen into like Xayah, Rakan, Wukong isn't like turbo value. Like I think there's definitely better spots to play Gwen. You kind of want to pick champions together with Lucian, Nami that are going to be, you know, facilitators, right? Maybe you could go like Lucian, Nami, Sejuani, Gwen. Maybe that could be an angle. And then just send K'Sante mid blind. I think it would have been better. The other approach is that you explore what kind of AD mid laners you want to play, set up an AP jungle on 4, and then play that into Wukong. That could be an angle too. Maybe you just go like Sejuani and then like an AD top, maybe something like this, because a lot of the AP junglers are quite good into Wu. This could be also one of those rare games where Rumble could potentially find value, right? Like let's say we see like a Rumble together with an AD jungler, whatever suits your fancy, like, and then you just rock and roll, or you just pick Rumble in the jungle, put K'Sante mid, and pick an AD top. That could be an angle too. Like let's say you go Rumble Poppy as a potential angle. You know, I think there's rooms to explore here. I'm kind of just spitballing, right? I'm just thinking out of my ass right now. But Kha'Zix LeBlanc, I think you're picking Kha'Zix LeBlanc into 4 champions that are just good into you. So it just doesn't make any sense. You just kind of ruin your whole comp. You put yourself on a timer, but you know, it's like one of those egg clocks, you know, that just maximum time that you can spin on that shit is 3 minutes. And it's going to ring so loud in your ears because it's just a disaster. And a disaster it was. Game number 2. Blabber tried his best. He was in a tough spot already because Wukong does Raptors and then cross into blue, and then he starts picking apart his camps. Blabber went on the bottom side looking for some type of play, but the play just wasn't there, so he just wasted a bit of time. Now he opens up, he tries to take some topside camps. Either he's going to run into Wukong here or take some of the topside camps, and that's it, you know. At least he gets something, right? So he recovers here quite well with the golem take. I think in a world where Peanut maybe stuck around and did his golems and then did wolves in to defend the raptors, I think he could have really fucked up Blabber here. But Blabber gets a little golem camp to collect. I think here, of course, Blabber is going to base and open on top. If you deny him all the topside camps, it's going to be a good time. But I think that Blabber did a good job of scouting the camps just to see what Peanut's decision is, because it's very important that he recovers this game considering he plays Kha'Zix. And now he could simply read that Wukong went to the bottom side, finish is clear, and now Wukong is going to open up on the map. And here they already see that Kha'Zix is doing the Raptors, and they also see his 24 CS, so they can safely assume that the golems are taking 2. So right now Wu, of course, is completely aware of the situation, and if anything, what you can look to do now with Peanut is to invade enemy Raptors, because he knows exactly the enemy clear. He goes for enemy Raptors, depends of course on mid situation. Wukong is already on the Raptors. If Kha'Zix did the Raptors into cross, usually you would spot him. Vex was on mid, and it is kind of a weird path to do so. He needs to base and then go. But he did Gromp, of course, to finish Serrated Dirk, and Wukong recovers by taking Raptors. Nami lost Flash in the isolated 2v2. Here I like this angle from Genji. They kind of just flash W because Rakan saved his flash from before. Nami lost Flash in the isolated 1v1, like a 1v1. Ideally, if Rakan is looking to W, I think either you want to heal out of it or just dodge it. But he was forced to flash in the isolated 2v2, which is problematic, of course. I think it's fine if you get flash W'd by Rakan to flash, but that didn't happen, right? Because Rakan still had flash. Eventually here we have a little fight on bot, where, well, first and foremost, we have Kha'Zix trying to sneak the Herald, but he got sniffed out. There was even a ward. It's kind of a clever ward placement, because the ward is placed on top of the crab, so Blabber feels like he's safe because he is operating away from the crab vision. But he's on a ward, and Peanut just jumps over and he plays with Fog of War, and then just E's, Q's, R's, neat little combo here, and then flashes, and then the bug is no more. And as mentioned before, these guys needed to outscale. They are getting turbo outscaled, and they're already behind. The only consolation prize is the fact they have a mountain, but it's not a good time. It's not a good time. This as well. Vex just had a timer on mid. They broke the turret with the Rift Herald. Full plating's gone. And then Blabber decided he was sick and tired of this game, because he just walked right in. Send me home, he said. Send me home. Send me home to the place I belong. West California. Mountain Mama. Let's take a look at the game-winning fight. See if there's something spicy. I know it's Virginia, guys. It's just the DLCS is in California. That's why I switched it up, because he's going home to California. Yo, this was just a last-ditch effort by C9. What I want to check actually is how they actually broke the bottom inhibitors. I think that's quite interesting. Let's take a look what they did macro-wise here. How did they break the base open like that? I'm very curious. Oh, they just killed... Oh, they just killed Lucian. Okay. As C9 have no room to breathe, and the game is completely over. We just continue. Based Mejaibai. He was really hoping, you know? It's like, oh, the only way I'm useful this game is if I get to randomly 25 stacks. Okay, let's jump into this draft as well. I thought probably this was the one where C9 had the best chances out of draft. Keisante, Lucian, Nami, and then they pivoted and picked Cannon Lee Sin. I think that this is not an easy game for Kha'Zix to play. He has some targets with Lucian and Nami. The enemy got Ahri, right? So you can look at that however you want. Probably Chovy shouldn't be allowed to play Ahri for the rest of the tournament, honestly. You can look at that, you know, you can judge that however you want. The enemy, I feel, is Lulu. Breaking that up, I think, makes sense. I think banning the Wukong probably over Ahri, I think, you know, it's tough. Very rough. I think this is where maybe you want to reconsider. Enemy goes Jinx, Ahri, and then Thresh on 3, drops Jungle. Sion Malphite ban. to set up for a little cannon. Kha'Zix gets picked on 4 blind with Nidalee and LeBlanc as the 4-5 bans. Here LeBlanc is a little bit better, right? Because you're planning to pick Kha'Zix, Thresh, Jinx, Ahri. These are champions that you know, LeBlanc operates against much better. Okay? So they ban LB. And then the tanks are out as well, which are also champions that are good into LB. Cannon, Lee Sin, and then Gragas on 5. So you pick your poison here, right? You pick whatever tank you want to ban. You know, you can argue maybe that leaving Malphite is better than leaving Gragas open, considering the play against Doran, right? Maybe there's room there to do something, some improvement. But Lee into Kha'Zix, I think that's perfectly fine. But this was just an Ahri Chovy masterclass. Just looking at this random frame that was saved from when I looked at this match just some moments ago, just his CS numbers are astonishing. And on top of that, this is a first strike Ahri that is going to be able to proc that on cooldown against the Kekona. Take a look back. I think the most crucial situation in the game was just this one. I think we get a replay right here. So basically C9, I think it's very important that you choose where you take your stand. Because as you do Drake, you need to be able to re-enter to a space, and wherever you want to re-enter, in most cases, unless you walk as 4, the enemy is going to be able to leverage the advantage that you need to enter into their sphere of influence. Especially when C9's champions don't necessarily have a good way of breaking out of the position, like a Blitzcrank or a Nautilus hook, to start the fight, right? So looking at this, right, what could have C9 done different? It's like they poke Peanut, and I think, you know, already from this position, if you are intending to enter into bottom side through here, you're not going to have a good time. In my mind, C9 needed to exit through Pixel and then defend bot by taking the plant that should be up here, right? I think that they should move upwards, because it's very unrealistic for them to break through here. The enemy should push bot, and that's the trade-off for you doing Drake, right? The enemy gets the better position to re-enter bot. Instead, C9 are looking for this fight that just is not going to happen. And then C9 are funneled into the pit, and they can still exit through top. And keep in mind, these 3 champions here, Lucian, Nami, and Lee, they don't have good ways of approaching these guys. Especially when Lee Sin Q misses, right? But he's going to get Thresh flayed, there's no option, Pace is going to be able to stack his lethal tempo, and Berserker already used the spells. He doesn't have enough damage to be a threat. He will be threatened if he tries to dash forward. So they should have just pieced out. But they didn't piece out. And then if you're looking to fight here and you want to leverage the fact that Chovy is coming at a different angle, then like you need to be willing to just burn your flash with K'Sante and look to just play the game here. You need to like EW flash, like E flash W, push them R and just fucking get a fight going, you know? Or you're just waiting, like you're basically fish in a barrel. Like this is the barrel, these are all the fish, they're currently lined up perfectly, and these guys are going to just be able to hit you for free until they have enough of a situation to just kill you. And that's what happened, right? So it's very important to recognize if a team, the rule of the games, the rule of the game is, if you are even in a situation where you have the superior, you are basically on Drake, right? And this is your position. You have, let's say, someone flanking here, someone flanking here. You have the superior position. The moment you begin to funnel through here and you want to re-enter mid and the enemy has this position, you're going to have a hard time. It's like superior positions always work 2 ways, okay? It's the same if, it's like if you funnel yourself through this choke point and the enemy's position like this, you're going to lose most of the time, right? If the enemy does the same and you are on the opposite side of the choke, then you'll be losing too, right? How you want to break this is because you basically enter through mid, you find flanks like this, right? You want to break their position. You don't all funnel through this spot, right? If you want to break their fortress that they built, right? Attack them at the edges. But my point is, the superior position for Drake means the weaker position to re-enter. And the same thing here. Lucian, I can't write. Lucian, Nami, Lee. They were all in the better position for the Drake, but they're in the worst position to re-enter bot. And they weren't willing to pay that price. If their champions were better, like let's say they had Nautilus, Blitzcrank, Draven, and they could just win the 3v3 by breaking through, then things might have looked different, right? But in this case, they don't have the champions to do so. And they are clearly weaker if they walk into the enemy, right? But even in that case, right, if you're playing Nautilus, Blitz, or these all-in supports, even though they have engage abilities and abilities to break positions, they are even stronger when enemies walk into them. The only champion with this is not true on is possibly like Ash Arrow, because you wanted to travel further, right? Every skill shot becomes easier to hit, easier to land if the enemy is walking into you. An Arnold becomes stronger when the enemy is walking into you. Much easier to hit. Much easier to get value. Okay. Let's just finish this Ari highlight reel. There were some moments where C9, you know, we were having fun. Thinking about the hopium, right? I just want to show this Chovy moment on mid lane. Absolute delight to watch. It was right after this fight. I think this is the one. Let's just...
Not a single death on Genji! That was Cloud9's try and it wasn't good enough!
Such a great flash from Fudge. Chovy's looking for more.
Chovy wants Berserker. He nearly gets him. He does get him. It's a clean ace for Genji.
Execution once again. 5 dead for Cloud9. 5 alive for Genji.
Damn.
24 minutes in.
Damn.
The Baron will be theirs, and it feels like that this series is done.
Annihilation.
Clean ace, absolute wipe here.
Seemed like C9 were drowning in the preparation, were drowning in the gameplay, and I think they looked a lot worse than they are. Kato said that 8th, 9th LCK teams put up more of a fight than C9. Do you agree? Yeah. Yeah. Like the 8th, 9th LCK teams are weird enough, you know, to make it spicy. It's just that, you know, I don't want to speak to what their mindset was, because I don't know. But I think C9 looked a lot worse than I expected. I have to leave, but I just want to say that maybe the greatest thing this MSI brought to Europe was the co-cast. Happy that you could gather with multiple players and watch the game before going deep into analysis. Hope you can keep the content and manage to find a team to coach again. It'll be a delight to watch the replay later though. Good evening everyone, please make Europe good again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Would DRX put up more of a fight? Maybe not DRX. DRX was just as sad to watch. But yeah, I'm sure C9 tried their absolute hardest. Sometimes you play the games and you look a lot worse than you can, and the scenarios that you play out. I just think that Genji is very good against teams that are worse than them. It's kind of like, you know, when we saw BDS versus Vitality, and Vitality got 3-0'd. It's like BDS are just were really good at stomping teams that were worse than them. Right? I think Genji is very good against teams that are worse than them because they play with very limited variance. Very limited variance. They have a clear identity and they play with very limited variance. Yeah, they are gold generators for sure. That brings me now to the predictions of JDG versus T1. I have to preface this by saying that I am so excited. I am so excited. I think there's only one video out there that can truly showcase how I feel. Where is it? Where is it? This. I think this video, this is how I feel in regards to tomorrow when I realize, oh, I've ascended. I've truly ascended. Wow. I am so excited for tomorrow's BO5. It is a clash of titans. I think that both teams are playing at a very high level. I think that we are going to be witnessing fireworks tomorrow. The key thing for tomorrow, I think, is both sides' ability to create meaningful advantages through bottom side. It is going to be a very crucial and crazy competition in regards to who can get their bot lane ahead. I think that Kanavi ruler missing, I think that they have found very creative ways of finding gank angles and finding advantages through bot and really setting up ruler for success. I think this part is crucial. I think that Zeus, I do believe Zeus is the better player, but I think that 369, he's very happy to play the role that is necessary in the context of the meta. Sadly, Zeus cannot enact his biggest strength, and he's had to work on a different style of gameplay. And I think the 369 is just kind of born to be the tank for his homies. 369 has been playing together with players like Kanavi and now with Ruler for quite some time, and these are guys that you want to put gold in their pockets. I think also the key thing is 369 in terms of his tank play, in terms of how much space he creates for both Knight and Ruler. I think that no one does it better. In terms of his Kesante play and Sion play, I think that his fight awareness is magnificent. I think that Zeus lane phase and side lane management, I think, is better. But I just think that these two details don't matter as much. And to add, Zeus has been playing tanks. He's been playing his Scions. He's been having fun, and he's been doing completely fine and well, right? But I do notice positional mistakes, and I think that JDG's top laner is just better in that context. Kanavi versus Owner, I think that I believe more in a world. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen to Vi, because it's been very weird. JDG's priority on Vi has been non-existent. They've left it open in a lot of cases. I think that Owner does a very good job facilitating his laners, and also a very good job of just being there whenever necessary. And I think the 3v3 on bot side will be crucial. I think that Korea's level of play is definitely an edge. But the question is, will this be... It's like, if every game we're going to see Lulu, Thresh, Rakan, I feel like Missing is very good there too. Very good there too. The 3v3 on bots is going to decide it all. I think T1, they have very, very good situational awareness. I think JDG does too. But I think that in mid-game, that is where JDG can make more mistakes than a T1. But as the late game progresses, and everything is all about how you contest around mid and how you set up for objectives, this is where JDG has stolen a lot of games where they are disadvantageous because of how good they are at fighting. They are fantastic at fighting. Very, very good at fighting. Many games they might fall behind because people get caught. They take fights that are not necessary. They try just a little bit too hard to snowball. But finishing games against JDG is very tough. Very tough. But the same thing can be said for T1. I'm really curious about how things progress. I think that for both sides, I think it makes sense to ban Lulu on blue. I think I would, you know, you ban Lulu on blue and then you have to play against Thresh. Right? The reason I like the Lulu ban is because I think it's important to have room to actually compete for the mid lane picks. So what are the crucial picks? We have Ahri, we have Annie, we have Nautilus, which is crucial, and then you have K'Sante too. So I think when it comes to K'Sante, K'Sante is the answer to Nautilus in my mind, and Nautilus is good into Annie, and then Ahri is probably the safest blind because you have a lot of rune options that can do well. Okay? So I could see a scenario where maybe it's like the champion that Knight wants to end up on, in most cases, in my mind, is these. Maybe we're going to see a scenario where the starting bans will be something like this. The main question still is, how does JDG treat Vi? Because they've ignored it largely for the entire tournament. When it was open, they ignored it and they never banned it themselves. And I believe that Vi is quite strong, right? Because of the context of the mid lane meta, right? If K'Sante is out, Vi becomes very strong in my mind. But the key thing, right, that you need to be careful for, that is lurking, is the Zyrakan. Especially in cases where Lulu is out, and also Lushinami is out. Right? I think the advantage of blue is that on 2-3, you can choose. If the enemy doesn't pick a bot laner, you can choose. If the enemy picks a bot laner, you can also choose. Right? There is arguments to be made for such a situation to appear. Maokai first picked, and then you just play the game. Could be a situation. I find it very hard to predict which direction teams are going to go into, because there are answers into things, right? If the enemy wants to play the Aphelios Lulu side, this is the only case where I think that JDG might be weaker. I would be more comfortable in a situation where basically T1 are the one playing into the Lulu. But I think if T1 is a team with the Aphelios Lulu, I think this is where they might have an edge. That's why I really like the Lulu ban, because I think it opens up a lot. They can play the Zyrakan themselves, right? You can play against the Thresh, right? You can play the Lushinami yourself. But then again, you have to ask yourself, do you have to pick your poison, right? I think in terms of what Kriya enjoys to play, I think probably he prefers to play Thresh over Lulu. So it's, you know, if you go like this, maybe you over-index a little bit too hard. But I'm curious where JDG go with their first pick. In this example, Grandmaster 2021, JDG is the blue side team. I wonder as well, because there was a circumstance here with JDG, their opening match. They did play Nautilus, right? They played Nautilus mid, if I remember correctly. Let's have a look. Let's find it. Am I crazy? Did they play Nautilus mid? I could have sworn that... yeah, here it is. But Knight on this champion, this looked very bad. This looked terrible. So there might be a world where, you know, maybe blue side is going to ban Nautilus. Maybe there's a world where they don't want to play Nautilus themselves because they want to end up on a scenario where Knight is playing Ahri, Annie, Syndra. This could be a situation, right? But I don't know, we can speculate very long about draft. I think if we think about all of the potential options, I'll get a deep headache. But we shall see. Can you explain why red side is chosen so much more frequently this time around? I think that this rotation is just very powerful on red. When Aphelios Lulu's in the picture. And I think a lot of the mid laners are specialists, and I think also a lot of the flex champions become stronger on red. Currently, if I think about all of the champions that are strong on the patch, it's like you have Aphelios, you have Lulu, you have K'Sante, Nautilus, Ahri, Annie. It's like the longer the list of very strong champions on the patch, Vi, Maokai, the better red side gets. I think JDG should play tank, bruiser, mid. No, I don't think so. It's like, I already highlighted this, right? It's like looking at the history of our homie Knight. It's Syndra, Ahri, Annie most of the time. Like, this is what he prefers to play, and honestly, he does it damn well. He does it damn well. I have some other stuff creeping in, right? Like the Jace sometimes. He tried the Nautilus and one K'Sante game. Sure. But you can see a clear preference. Yeah, the key thing for me, right? Like what makes me want to lean towards JDG just a little bit more, and why I think they're going to win the match, is I think that the meta fits them better. And I think that 369 can shine in such a meta, and I think that Kanavi does a very, very good job of facilitating his bot lane. And I think what is going to be very interesting to follow is what kind of bans are thrown towards Faker and also Knight to push them off of the comfort, right? I think Ahri will be contested, right? Annie is contested, but I think that Nautilus, K'Sante are champions that Faker prefers. And then you have the Syndra pocket pick and the Jace for Knight. Another question there is like, will Vi be relevant? Like, will Vi be picked? Will it be ignored? Like in every other series, besides the ones JDG plays, this champion is perma-banned. Here, T1 banned Vi Maokai every single game against Genji. Every single game, right? And then they went into win a bracket. Here, JDG Billy banned Vi. And then here, Vi is open, but the enemy just picks it. So Ahri first pick and then Vi, they just picked Maokai, ignored it completely, and then went Jinx K'Sante and had a good time. Well, it wasn't really a good time, because in all honesty, like, this was a sweater of the game for JDG. And then once again here, Aphelios is first picked, Lulu Zeri gets locked in, and Vi becomes ignored. It's just ignored. And that to me is just strange. I don't know how to judge that. You know? They just went Lulu Zeri to deny Lulu from the Aphelios, and then they went K'Sante. I wonder if we will get to the point where the adaptation for blue side will be to first pick Lulu. But I think that if you're on red side and you play Aphelios Blitz into Lulu, I think it's better than the Blitz and Jinx that we've seen. So we shall see. But all in all, I think this series is going to be really, really damn close. I think it's going to be like clinical. I think that both teams have shown the ability to come back and like really, really good strength in the mid to late game. I think that T1 has opportunities to punish some of the inaccuracies of JDG's mid game, but I think that JDG early in terms of how they pressure bot is really, really good. And in the games that I've seen so far, they find really, really clever gank angles, and they have very, very good awareness of what is the best way to win the game. And I believe while the 3v3 bot side will be very contested, I think Korea has a slight edge. I would say Ruler Gumayushi is on even footing, but the edge that Ruler has there is that I really prefer his Zeri. And I think that is a slight edge for Ruler. But other than that, I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. Fantastic matchup. But my instinct tells me that I think JDG is favored coming into the match. That's it. I preface this once again. I said this is going to be the greatest best of 5 ever. And either way, you know, no matter what it's coming, I think it's going to deliver. Can you give a score or can't tell? I think giving scores is kind of weird. Because it's like, I predicted T1 to 3-0 Genji. And they went 3-2. But I look at those games, and to me, that 3-2 is just as meaningful as a 3-0. Because it's silly, right? It's strange. If I predict a score, I think it's like a 3-0 can be just as meaningful and impactful as a 3-2. It's all about, you know, how the games are playing out. So giving a score does feel silly. But if I have to give a score, let's say JDG 3-2. Right? Let's just say that's a score. And that's it.